want to finish, you want to finish with buddies, and you want to finish fast. Guys, it's a time for another edition of Let's Dev with Greg, episode 6. We're talking about the pitch today, and that is exciting. So, for those of you that are uninitiated, the pitch is the idea for the game. And over the past couple of weeks / month, I've been thinking about, what type of mechanics we have and where we can potentially go with this. So I've laid out some initial thoughts, and just like a lot of stuff with game development that are subject to change as it goes along, we might realize that, hey, this isn't what's fun about the game. We might discover something that's totally more fun as I go, and we want to pivot and transition our gameplay to be more focused on that. But this is what I have so far. So here it is, the elevator pitch. Super Meat Boy meets Snake with combat elements. So it's a fast-paced, level-based platformer where the player must find and collect buddies who will then follow the player and mimic the movement of the last person in the line, creating a snake-like movement train. The player must then escort that buddy chain to the end of the level. At any point while following the player, the buddies can be killed. So the objective is you want to finish with buddies, and you want to finish fast. But that's not all the high concept document needs. We need a little bit more. The objective is to get to the end of the level. Each level has a completion door. By reaching the end of the door, you'll unlock the next level in that zone. But there's also X amount of buddies to save within each level. So the objective really is you need to not only finish the level, but you need to finish it with these buddies following you. The buddies can be killed, and you also can be killed by the enemies and the hazards within the level. And the longer the chain of buddies, then the more difficult this is going to be to finish it quickly with this long chain of buddies following you to get to the end. So that's where the challenge comes in. Each level would track the highest amount of buddies you saved in a single run of that level. So let's say a level has 4 buddies that you're trying to save, and you finish with 2 of them saved. So that's 2 out of 4 buddies. Then back in the hub world, that level would show as completed with 2 of the 4 buddies saved. Now you could go back in and play the level again and try to save more than 2 buddies. And then, so let's say you played again and you got all of them. Then that level would have 4 out of 4 buddies saved. Once you finish a level with all of the buddies saved, you also get a time score for that level. So it's this degree of difficulty that starts coming in. If the player is killed, the level restarts automatically. We want restarting to be super fast, and the player can also manually restart the level quickly and easily. So if they messed up or something like that, they could just hit the restart button and bang, they're doing a new run. That's where my Super Meat Boy comparison comes in. It's very these levels should be designed to where they're taking under a minute if you're doing it correctly, and you'll probably die lots of times, but since the restarting loop is so fast, it's not frustrating to the player, hopefully. Okay, so we talked a little bit about each level. Now let's talk about the overarching stuff. So the hub world. So levels are contained in zones of levels. This is very common in many games. When you start the game, you're in zone 1, you only have access to the first level. If you beat that level, that means getting to the door in the level without saving any buddies. You unlock the next level. You can play it. But to unlock the boss level, you need to save a certain number of buddies within that zone. You can kind of play through. There's the idea of varying degree of difficulty. A player can still achieve some level of success just by platforming his way through the level, beating the enemies or avoiding the enemies and getting to the end. That in its own right is a small success because now we've unlocked a new level. to play, more content, and you can get more familiar with the mechanics and things like that. Then we want the player to demonstrate mastery of that level by saving buddies, right? Then further mastery of that level is shown when you save all the buddies, you get that time score.
You want to finish. You want to finish with buddies, and you want to finish fast.
For each zone, if you complete all the levels and save all the buddies within each level, that way you have logged a time score for each level, then you get a zone time score. Those would show up on leaderboards. Again, that's like the third level of mastery. I want to show you a little bit of the idea. I mean, I have not gotten, I haven't started really with the following of the things, but there's you will have these little guys, they're your buddies, and the idea would, and this is not how it would look at all, this is just completely placeholder in terms of the type of motion. So imagine the snake game, which for snake, they mimic your exact movements, and this is not what that is. But that's what we will eventually get to. This guy, so if I were to jump and jump again, it would just be, he would do the exact same thing, but on a little bit of a delay. Now, if there were an enemy in here, like a turret, and I jumped, and I were to have, dodged that bullet, but maybe my buddy doesn't, he gets hit and he gets taken out, then, I can no longer save that buddy. So the loop becomes, you gotta get to a buddy, and then he would start following you. And then if you got to another buddy, that buddy would start following the other buddy. So the chain starts to get longer, right? So the longer the chain, the inherently more difficult it becomes to protect your chain while you try to get to the end of the level to save them, right? That kind of makes sense. I think it's this kind of cool, again, I'm going for these levels of mastery within the game, right? You could go through, beat the level, and unlock the next level. You don't have to save any buddies. Eventually, you're going to have to start saving some, and things like that. In terms of level design, we can do this awards us a lot of options to do cool things. Like we could put one buddy pretty easy, in an easy spot to get and get safely in. Whereas if we wanted to make it harder, to perfect the level, a couple buddies could be in more difficult places, guarded by harder enemies or things that might take more time to get to. But that's the whole fun of it, right? So, yeah.
You want to finish. You want to finish with buddies. And you want to finish fast.